Welcome back. A gastric balloon, also known as an intragastric balloon, an IGB, or a stomach balloon, is an inflatable medical device that is temporarily placed into the stomach to help reduce weight. It's designed to provide weight loss when diet and exercise have failed and surgery is not wanted or recommended for the patient. So when people get the gastric balloon inserted and it takes up room inside their stomach, they're able to lose 40, 50, 60 pounds in a very short amount of time, but the balloon cannot remain inside your stomach forever. So when the balloon gets taken out, sometimes it's real easy for men and women to actually regain the weight that they've lost pretty quickly. One of the people that thought she could really stay on top of this was the Balloon Boy Mom. That's the name of her channel. The Balloon Boy Mom is a mother of three. She ended up losing quite a bit of weight with her balloon, absolutely loved her balloon, was upset when they took it out because she wanted them to put a brand new one back in, but apparently they wouldn't. And so she's going to talk a little bit about that now. The name of this video is I Failed, I Gained Weight Back Again, and Now I Have a New Plan. And again, this is Balloon Boy Mom.
3 years ago on February 15th, I had my Orbera gastric balloon placed. It was wildly successful, and everything was going well, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward to last August, late last August. So those of you who keep up with this rambling nightmare that is my vlog, I got really sick. And when I got really, really sick, I decided that I needed to be more, I don't know, present. So after my gastric balloon was removed, and for the year and a half, 2 years post removal, as time went on, it got harder and harder for me to keep weight off. But I mean, I could absolutely do it. So after I got really sick in August, I kind of let my guard down a little bit and wasn't militant about what I was eating. And in the 6 months that I stopped being a complete control freak about what I was eating, I put on 20 pounds. And it sucks. And I feel like a failure, and I feel like I suck. And I feel like I let down the Orbera people, and I let down myself, and it's a freaking disaster. So in the great grand scheme of things, is it a disaster? No, it is not. It is not, the big C. It's not anything like that. But it freaking sucks. It sucks. And the more the weight keeps coming back, and the more that I'm trying, it's like holding back the ocean with my bare hands. The more that I try to do it, the more my brain is it's on overdrive all the time. I feel like I spend like 60% of my life stressed out about how much I weigh and what am I going to eat and what am I going to eat now, and then oh my god, I accidentally ate at 7:55 and do I finish now? It's pathetic.
That was an absolutely beautiful rant there. Sometimes you need to get those things out, right? Get that vent out. So the one thing that I noticed that she said is what a lot of overweight people describe, and she put it to words so beautifully. It's like trying to stop the waters of the ocean with your bare hands. Sometimes with our weight, for some of us, it can feel like we're completely out of control. Now, I've always been one of these people that as I get a little out of control with my weight, I can stop it and kind of reel it back in. And there's a lot of people like me out there. But there's a lot of people that find themselves in the boat that the Balloon Boy Mom, what a name, right? The Balloon Boy Mom here found herself in. And I just felt like she was able to throw words out there that described it to a T. So if you agree and her frustration there is the same frustration you feel with this subject, let me know down in the comments.
So, the big C, not cancer, but part of what's been going on is, so I have celiac. I've known that I've had celiac for a while, but I don't care because it doesn't make me sick. But what it does do is it makes me extraordinarily anemic. So because I'm bleeding internally at all times. The last time that I was not anemic was when I had my gastric balloon. So I'm sitting here like hemorrhaging internally. I chew like 3 to 5 pounds of ice a day. Pounds! It's disgusting. My dentist is like, what are you doing? So this is like long and rambling and stupid, but the last time I felt free was when I had a gastric balloon. And I wanted it back. But they won't give it back to me. So I started doing a little bit more research, and I think we need to change the name of this from Balloon Boy Mom to maybe Bariatric Boy Mom, because I just went in and had a consultation with a renowned bariatric doctor in Denver, and he's like, oh, you know what would work really well for you? Because have you thought about a lap band? And I think I'm gonna do it. Now, okay, I've not even told my husband because he's gonna freak out. But I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted. And I'm sad. And the last time that I felt in control of my brain and in control of my body is when I had a gastric balloon. And I want that back.
Now, here's where I want you guys watching to kind of help me out here in the comments. If a balloon is inside of you with all your stomach acids, right? I could see after a couple months they have to remove it because maybe it slowly degrades and you don't want that thing popping inside you, I imagine, right? So my question to you guys, why can't they just insert a new balloon? Is it excessively dangerous? Is it something where it forms cysts or something inside the stomach? If you know an answer, let me know down in the comments.
So I'm going to get it back a little differently. And yeah. So I weigh like 170 pounds, give or take. And I'm like 5'6.5". That's not crazy, but it could be if I let this get away from me. This is going to get ugly, and I know it. And I refuse to do this again. A lap band you can keep, I guess. Who knew? Not me, but now I do. And backstory. So I was put on my first diet at 5. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. So I was an actor, a musical theater performer. I did a commercial print modeling, blah, 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 blah. I have spent 35 years of my life worried and stressed. Will the costume fit? Because if the costume doesn't fit, I'm going to lose my job. That's a true, honest to God thought. That is a thing that happens if you are in a show. You sign a contract that you cannot gain or lose too much weight. If your costume does not fit, they will fire your ass. I got more work commercially when I was 135 pounds than I ever did when I was 165. I was no better of a performer, but I fit in the dresses. I fit in the costumes. Here's the other thing. Okay, so I started my company when I was heavy, and it went nowhere. It went nowhere. And then I got a gastric balloon. And we went from just me throwing on an Elsa dress, looking real not good, by the way, to I now run the largest company in the state. Because I don't know if that had to do with my confidence. I don't know if that had to do with, the fact that, yeah, I could throw on a dress and not look like, a pig in heels. And that sounds terrible, but that's how I felt. So I got so much freed up space in my brain to think about something other than, okay, how many calories is in this, salad dressing? So I'm going to tell my husband today that this is happening.
I hate to stop it there because there's only a minute or so left of her video here. But I wanted to stop it for a brief second because I haven't watched enough of her videos to know exactly, how big she got or whatever the situation was that started her having to get the balloon or now contemplating the lap band. But at 170 pounds, is there anyone else besides me in the crowd that is thinking, why don't you, instead of thinking about these procedures, why don't you just start a diet and exercise plan? Because now you're not 250 or 300 pounds, right? You're 170. You're just telling us how wonderful life was for you acting, right? When you were 135 pounds. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's only 35 pounds away. And you've just gained 20, but you've kind of caught yourself right now. My thinking is, why not start a diet and exercise routine? Not because they're not challenging, because we all already know they are challenging. But it's really challenging and daunting when you know you have to lose 140 pounds. In her case, she just loses 25 or 35 pounds, and she's right there at her ideal weight.
Because I can't do this anymore. I mean, I'm looking at myself right now, and I'm like, fat in the face. And it makes me sad. And feel free, judge. I'd judge me too. I'd be like, you're a douche. Like, you suck, man. Get a life. I have a life. And I want to make that life better. And it's my money and my body, and I can do whatever the hell I please.
Sounds to me like she really isn't a confident, she comes across as a really confident person, but she has these certain things in life that can really kind of ding that confidence. And I think we're all that way, right? Because I'd like to show one or two more videos over the next couple days or weeks because her story's kind of interesting. With that being said, go grab your shoes. Let's go for a walk. Good morning, Venters. Hey, what do you think of Ibrahim Raisi, president of Iran's helicopter crash? That is crazy, huh? So check this out. The helicopter he was in was an American helicopter. The technology in it was 40 years old. So we're talking some helicopter from the 80s, because apparently Iran, because of sanctions, doesn't have the ability to like upgrade their stuff, which makes absolutely no sense. You're telling me there's not steel somewhere within the country of Iran where they could have used materials and engineering to create, you know, a relatively newer helicopter? Could you imagine? The president of a country probably has money out the wazoo, and you're telling me this guy's got a 40-year-old helicopter? This is the type of helicopter that doesn't have any technology on it, so you're relying on the pilot's skill and eyeballs alone. I mean, my gosh, what if the pilot fainted or something crazy? And then did you see the weather they were flying in? It was like you couldn't see 3 feet in front of your face. The fog was so crazy. You know, you look at situations like that, and it's like, what a recipe for disaster. A president on a 40-year-old jalopy, basically, and then the pilot is your computer on board. I mean, that is ridiculous. And then, of course, the first thing that Israel and America does is, it wasn't us. That's what's so funny when the rumors about, you know, your country is that, you know, you're causing grief and strife all around the world. Even when an accident occurs, it's like, was that really an accident? Or was that just America, you know, meddling? Who knows? Gosh, that is crazy. I can tell you one thing, though. when the most important guy in your country, or I assume he was second in command, you know, some of these other countries have like a great leader and then they have a president on top. And it's like, how bizarre is that? I remember when I heard stories about Adolf Hitler coming to power. Remember, there was kind of like a German, I don't know if they call him a chancellor or a German king or whatever, but Hitler was kind of second in power, yet he was kind of the leader of the country. Well, that's how I look at some of these countries now. It's like they have a president, and then they have a grand leader, and then they have a this, that, and the other, right? Royal prince or whatever. And it's like, holy moly. How do you keep track of who's actually in charge? Is somebody in charge of the country, and then somebody's in charge of foreign affairs? Who knows? Who knows? All I know is that whenever a president dies, I'd imagine there's going to be some sort of investigation, and who knows what they'll find. They'll probably find that a UFO appeared out of nowhere and took it out. And luckily they got a picture of it on camera, and right on the side of the UFO in big letters it says USA, so who knows. Kazef said hello for the first time in a couple of probably weeks. Kazef, I think you told me once that your actual first name was Karen. You told me just today, hey Jesse, I'm on day 51, I'm still going. Keep going. Day 51 is where you've probably already lost 6 to 10 pounds, and you're probably just starting to tip the scales, Kazef, so you're gonna start losing some big time weight. Congratulations on day 51. What an accomplishment. Keep it going. Keep it going. Guys, I have so much riding on this last 24 or 25 days. I know that when a person has to lose a buttload of weight in 1 month, it can come across as really tough and impossible. And I think I'm still going to give the 30 pounds a run for its money. Remember what I said in my first couple of videos too, that there's a little period between day 90 and day 100 where I tend to also continually shrink. So I tend to go from 155 into that 149 range. Now, I'm a little heavier than I normally am at this point, but I started off a little heavier. So again, you might see me get up to 15, 16, 20 pounds lost by the 90 days. And I guess some people could see that as a failure, but over that next 10 days, if I lose an additional 5 to 10 pounds, you know, I'm still right there. So again, your body doesn't really know that you're in a 90-day challenge. And the video that I have you guys watching today was a lot like Sherry Lorena. Sherry Lorena, a lot of people were saying, hey, her diet is a joke. I don't think it's a joke. I think that's the diet she actually had, that bowl of oatmeal with all the sugar and stuff in it. I think that was a true statement that Sherry Lorena made. And this gentleman that we're watching today, his name is Wayne Cooney, right? Wayne Cooney lost 60 pounds basically the exact same way. He walked for 90 minutes a day. So break that 90 minutes into a morning, midday, and early evening walk, right? Half an hour each time. When you're walking, try to walk in a nice pace, right? In other words, don't make it one of these walks where you're stopping every 3 houses to check out your neighbor's front yard. Try to stay at a nice brisk pace. And basically over the course of a year, guys, Wayne Cooney dropped 60 pounds just like Sherry Lorena. And he was so happy. And I want you guys to think about something. His starting weight was 365 to 369. So basically, we're talking about a guy that was closer to 400 pounds than 300 pounds. That's a lot of weight. And even he, at 365 plus pounds, was able to cut off 60 pounds of weight, which is huge. God, what is that? 1/4, 1/5 of his weight? Just like that. Well, I guess that would be 1/7 of his weight, but either way, a lot of weight, right? Gone just like that. And the most important, most impressive part of the talk that he shared with us today was the fact that he didn't change his diet one iota. He had said that in addition to walking, he went swimming a handful of times, right? And by the way, I was able to swim the last 2 weekends. And the first weekend, I just kind of went out there and just kind of stood in the pool. And I even tell people, don't do that, swim. And so this last week that I went swimming, I actually did some doggy paddles. I did some overhand stroke, paddling over the water, tried to go a little fast, tried to go consistently. Even when I was standing in place, I tried to doggy paddle, so I'm not standing on the ground, but I'm kind of in the water, moving at all times. That's what you have to do, guys. But I want you guys to remember that even though this is my last month, people like Sherry Lorena and their 5 or 6 month plan, people like Wayne Cooney and their 12-month plan, guys, even if you're on a 12-month plan, you and I are already 1/6 of that plan through. God, I can barely talk in the morning sometimes, I apologize. But think about it, to be 2 months through, you're already 1/6 done with the whole year. And if you're on a 5 or 6 month plan, you're already 1/3 done, right? So think about it. You don't have to look at it as make and break for this 90-day period. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's gonna work. Now, in Sherry Lorena's situation, she didn't really do the best diet, but I mean, my goodness, if I didn't do the best diet and still lost 60 pounds over 5 months, I would be amazingly happy, and she was. You take Wayne Cooney's situation, if he had drinking only water and avoided sugar in addition to his walks, the guy might have lost even more weight. But again, if you don't change your diet at all and you still lose 60 pounds, let's rejoice over that. Great job, Wayne. Great job, Sherry. You're letting our walkers know that walking is king. Walking is the best thing that you can do. And I know occasionally I'll get a jogger or a runner that'll come on and say how they need to jog to lose weight. And sometimes they kind of low-key backhand walkers, right? Like, hey, walking's a little wimpy, right? But I'm going to tell you guys something. Almost every runner or jogger reaches a point where they have to put up the running shoes, right? And it might be because of injury, but it also might just be because as you get older, certain things just don't become as attractive to you anymore. And believe it or not, more than likely, not in all cases, of course, but more than likely, 95% of the people that are running today will eventually be walking tomorrow, you know? And if you're going the opposite way, where you're walking today, but you're going to be running tomorrow, again, we want you to succeed. So there is no hate or anything. It's just, don't be against the walk. And if you end up doing something like hurting yourself or injuring yourself during the run, and you don't want to just be idle, if you're able to, you might not be able to run, but you might still be able to walk. Walk with us. We'll help you walk your way into recovery so that one day you can start jogging again, you know? Also, no matter what diet you're doing, whether it's one like Sherry's, whether it's one like Wayne's, whether it's somebody that's not really dieting but they're on weight loss medication, so no matter what they do, they lose weight. Guys, no matter what diet that you're taking on, walk with us. There is an addictive quality to walking. And right now I came out about 20 minutes early, so it's closer to 6:45. Well, now it's probably closer to 7, right? Because I've been walking for 10 minutes or so. But it's already feeling warm. And we've been lucky in Arizona so far, because normally during the month of May, you start to get a lot more days up in the 100 to 105 range. We've been getting days that are closer to 95-ish. So Yeah, whatever you think of the Iranian president and his antiquated helicopter, let us know in the comments. Do you think that was a perfect storm? Do you think we're going to find out 15 or 20 years from now that it was us, that it was Israel? You know, that's the scary thing with these presidents in other parts of the world, in the Middle East and stuff. When they say death to America, death to Israel, you never know if that's going to create a situation where we put a plan into motion to eliminate those people. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying our country is the type that'll take you out and then find a way to prove that it wasn't us, you know? And I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. You know, if it's a situation where this ends up sparking World War III, but then you know what? We might potentially already be in WW3, you know? Who knows? I know one thing, I know that usually when you get involved in wars, they usually either tear a country apart or they bring a country together. And that's kind of the scary thing about America. We're so divided right now, guys, that I could see the country going to war just to see if we can get united, you know? And I definitely don't think that's a good thing. I wish we could go back to the early 2000s and the late 1900s where, you know, it wasn't uncommon for people to just be okay with having differences. You know, we used to hear sayings like, hey, we disagree, but it's okay that we disagree. Let's agree that we disagree. And you would say, hey, you know, the military, remember they would say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with your opinion, but I'll fight for this country so that you have the right to speak your mind, right? And have your own opinion. That's why I think whenever we have situations where there's college debates and one side is allowed to talk and then the other side is bullied into silence, right? I think that's really horrible. And that's one of the things that's kind of freaky about college nowadays is colleges and universities used to be the place where you could come up with new ideas and share your plans and foster debate. And you used to be able to like have multiple points of view. Now, one or two of the points of views, you just kind of got to keep your mouth shut and keep on walking and don't say anything. And that creates a scary future. And that's what kind of disappoints me about our kids that are in their 20s. The kids in our 20s, I don't think they understand the idea of America that well. They equate America to being some sort of capitalist pig that makes the world a horrible place, you know? But I think in reality, Americans are the most generous people in the world. Every time there's a natural disaster around the world, usually Americans help out more than everybody in every single situation. Have you guys ever noticed that? Every single country in the world in some way, shape, or form seems to take on some sort of aid package from America. And it makes you wonder if we quit giving all these different countries aid, and I'm not saying that we should, because sometimes there's good reason to give them aid, right? But if we stopped giving them aid, you know, how much easier would it be on Americans if we didn't have all these monies going out constantly to other countries? Would we be in a situation where every one of us would have an extra couple $1,000s in our pocket each year? I just feel like if there's one country that needs to take care of itself, not only right now, but for the next decade or two, it's America. I don't know if you notice as I'm walking through the neighborhood, but there's a lot of vehicles out. And if you think about it, back in the day, at this time of hour or this time of day, you wouldn't see half as many cars. Why, Jesse? Because back then people left their house and went to work. They went to their job. And most people worked. Even if it was a two-family household, you'd have occasionally situations where moms or dads would be stay-at-home parents. But a lot of times both parents would work. Nowadays, look at all the cars that are here. You know what I think these cars represent? Kids and families that are forced to live with their parents, right? I think we have a situation where, yeah, a percentage of these people probably work from home, but a big percentage of these people probably aren't working at all. And that's not a good sign. And I don't know how we have all these cars when everybody's car is super expensive. I'm surprised there's not less cars. But then again, how can there be less cars if families are consolidating, you know? And by the way, I'm not against families consolidating. If you lose your home, or if your kids lose their home and they need a place to stay and you're their mom or dad, open up your house to your kids. What are you going to do? You can't let them be homeless. That goes back to what I was talking about the other day. If you're a millionaire and you want to retire a millionaire and you're going to die with a bunch of money and then leave it to your kids, your kids in their 20s and 30s, when they're struggling, that's what can lead to their families, going through divorce. Help your families out to keep your grandkids in a situation where both their parents can be together. That's tricky though. Could you imagine giving your children a bunch of money so they can stay at their house and then they still get a divorce? Oh my God, that would be irritating, right? And again, it's interesting, a lot of times when we have money troubles, we do end up going through things like separation and divorce. But you guys all know that the best way to succeed is to stay together. And by the way, I'm divorced and I've been through tons of breakups, just like many of you guys have, right? I'm not advocating that every relationship should last forever, but I am saying straight out, flat out, that couples that do stay together, they have a huge advantage over couples that don't, right? Jesse, if couples don't stay together, they're not a couple anymore. Yes, Bob, I understand that. But understand this, almost every one of us has gone through a pretty traumatic breakup. And when you go through breakups as married couples, you instantly start losing money because what you do is you go get your lawyer, your spouse goes and gets their lawyer. If you're the only breadwinner in the family, guess what? Your money is going to pay for both lawyers. Could you imagine paying for a lawyer for your spouse, and that lawyer's number one job is to get the most out of your money, the most out of your properties and stuff for your spouse to take? Oh my God, what a nightmare. How much am I paying you to rip me off? That is a scary situation. And I know in the past we've had situations where that has benefited greatly one partner or another, but you never know what the future's going to bring. The future could bring a situation about where those things get toppled on their head, I mean, in the future, you might have a situation where men start winning custody of their kids a little bit more often, And that's a scary thing to think about if you're a woman, because we've basically had a situation where, what would you say, 80% of the time, the woman does a little bit better in divorce court than the man. That could very well change in the future, because now we live in a world where I think over the last 10 or 15 years, haven't more women in the United States gotten college degrees? And I think we live in a world where a lot of women actually make more than men. I know when they take the average, there's still a wage gap and stuff there. But a lot of times that wage gap is because there still are a lot of women that have to take X amount of months off each year for, maternity leave. I think sometimes women, if we were to be honest, I think sometimes they take advantage a little bit of their PTO time a little bit more regularly than guys. Because it's funny, I have guys at my work and they go on vacations and stuff, but they almost never talk about it. The women, they plan their vacation at the beginning of the year. They're like, yeah, in the fall, I'm going to be going to Hawaii, and for New Year's next year, we're going to Italy, and they make all these grandiose plans. God, could you imagine if you took 2 vacations a year, but instead of taking both, what if you had a staycation for one, and you just took that money that you saved and invested it into your IRA account? You'd probably retire pretty wealthy, By the way, the other day I was talking about how you're a fool if you retire with a bunch of money in your bank. That's not what I was ultimately saying, and if it came across that way, I apologize. My thinking is, if you have $1 million in your bank, why not have a celebratory situation where you literally, add your kids to your bank account, and then they can just enjoy that money with you while you're alive? Because I'll tell you one thing, if you passed away and you left me $1 million, you left your estate to me and stuff, God, that would be a sad situation for you to pass. But it would be kind of like winning the lottery, right? You win $1 million, you win a house, you win a car. That's like winning a lottery. Why not give somebody that elation while they're still alive, And it's funny, a lot of times when millionaires pass away, a lot of times their kids are successful. We always talk about how usually rich families, did you know within 1 or 2 generations, they're usually poor again? So even though you're successful, your kids and your grandkids aren't necessarily going to be that same success level. But I don't know if I really believe that. I think a lot of times rich families naturally have their kids go to the best private schools, get the best education, help them start their own business, give them money for their first home. There's advantages to being rich, And usually 2 or 3 generations down the line, when they do lose their money, it's usually because, the second generation did something different, lost a portion of their money, and then the third generation took on a drug addiction. So usually there's valid reasons for why the money got lost. It's not just because, it's impossible to take care of money. And it's not necessarily because of bad decisions. Sometimes parents pass on and they don't leave any money to their kids. Sometimes they leave money to the public library or the school system in Virginia, different places. Gosh, that's another good reason to have a good relationship with your family. Wouldn't you feel shafted if your millionaire mom or your millionaire dad passed away and didn't leave you a penny? Instead, they left all the money that should have been in your pocket. They left it to some library. Oh my God. That would just make me rage. Oh my God. And that happens every day. There's always some jerk parent that's like, you know what? I don't like my kids. But sometimes there's jerk kids, Every time I go into surgery, because I can't, keep in contact with my son very well, I always have to have that talk with my daughter or my mom, and I have to say, hey, if anything goofy happens to me in this surgery, I'm going to leave my money to you, but please make sure you give something to your brother. And you know how siblings could be. My daughter could give her brother $500 and say, there you go. And all of a sudden my son's thinking that I never loved him or something. And it's like, no, you never gave me a phone call. Give me a phone call. It's really, really a sad situation with my son because he's on TikTok and Instagram, and I go put a heart next to his message and I try sending him messages, and if they don't accept your very first message, you can't just message them unlimited. So I'm sitting here messaging my son, and he hasn't accepted the first message that I left him months ago. So I can't get in touch with him. And it's really a bummer. Because the last thing you want as a parent is to get in touch with somebody when it's bad news. And that's what I feel like my son is setting up for me. He's setting up a situation where either he's going to hear bad news about me, or I'm going to hear bad news about him. And I just really don't want it to be like that, You should be able to celebrate moments like your son's birthday, like your birthday, like holidays and special occasions. And for some reason, he just wants to shut me out completely. And I just don't get it. But here's the thing. I'm not the only one out of us that has these family issues. I bet you there's a handful of us that are in the same boat, where maybe one of their kids or maybe both of their kids or all of their kids aren't really talking to them. Is it a situation where they're just living their good old life and they just don't want to talk with you? Or could there be situations from the past that, maybe you did something wrong and maybe you need to pick up the phone and call them and apologize? Sometimes that ego can really make it where we just punish ourselves, because I'm telling you, if you did something to your kids and they're not in your life, you should really contemplate apologizing, And by the way, I had moments in my life after my divorce where me and my son would have arguments. And they weren't like adult arguments. They were, I was the adult, he was the kid or teenager type arguments, So I know there's a little bitterness there about the fact that we got divorced. And I also know that his mom didn't necessarily say the best things about me post-divorce, But at the same time, I've talked about these things with my son. We've gone through the starting portion of healing, where you say, hey, I'm sorry about the things that I've said. I'm sorry about the fact that things didn't work out with me and your mom, And we've had meals together, and he's told me on more than one occasion, Dad, I understand. I want to move forward and have a relationship with you, right? So we've had these talks that are important to go through. The only difference is my son's the type that'll have that talk and then go right back to just living his good old life and not communicating, But it is what it is. I know that he has quite a few student loans, so I have a feeling one day I'll get a phone call and it'll be him asking for help. And that's kind of a bummer, because that's a situation where you can stew on it and say, golly, the only time my kids call me is when they need something. But you want to know what? That's just kind of life in general. Whether you have a good relationship with your kids or not, they should be able to call you as their parent when they need help, when they need support, And I don't want my son to be so afraid to reach out that he waits until his student loans are just impossible. And I have a funny feeling that his student loans are probably starting to become impossible. Just another reason why some of these universities and colleges kind of irritate me. I don't really understand why their schools have to be so expensive. My son went to U of A, and then he left, I believe, halfway through his junior year. So I was giving him money for his school. This was after I had paid off my child support. And he and his mom were reaching out to me and saying, hey, he's in school and he's working part-time, but he needs X amount of dollars, to kind of help him, supplement him a little bit. And so, you send him money, and then I would ask him questions about, hey, how's your GPA? What courses are you studying? And he would always have this long pause or delay. So I kind of had a feeling like, God, am I paying bills and paying for my son that's in school? And is my son actually dropping out and not in school? And came to find out that he and his mom were kind of ripping me off in that regard. Is it a rip-off whenever you give your kids money? Not necessarily, But if it was a stranger that did that you were helping them get through school, and then you find out that they dropped out and were still telling you, hey, I'm in school, I need these funds, that is technically ripping off somebody. So I was in a situation where my ex and my son were kind of lying to me to get me to send them money. And believe me when I tell you, it wasn't 40 or 50 bucks here and there. It was $400, $500, $700. And that's kind of disappointing. So we did have an adult situation where we disagreed. But again, we even ate dinner and lunch and stuff after that. So I don't even know if that's a real good reason for the disconnect. But if you're having a disconnect with your kids, pick up the phone, see if you can rectify it. That's what I try to do literally every other week. I try to reach out to them in some way, shape, or form. Because if you're not trying, you need to be. Speaking of trying, why don't you take an extra walk? Because you know that you don't have to go to work today. And I'll see you tomorrow.